Hey everybody, this is Perch. All right, how should Marvel handle large casts? I suspect this question is going to be about the MCU, but let's see what you have to say. Says, hey Perch, hope you're doing okay. Oh, sweet. Says, I was watching one of your recent videos commenting on the expansion of X books in recent years. While I personally agree with your analysis and that there's an inevitable trade-off between quality and quantity, a couple issues came to my mind. Whether we like it or not, I believe the X-Men books in particular have to serve multiple masters at the same time. They need to keep executives happy by raising the profile of the IP, especially now that Disney is no longer trying to minimize it, while also continuing with the flood the market push that Marvel as a publishing company has embraced for literally decades as part of the strategy to indirectly restrict the competition's sales. So, by the way, for what he's referring to here, I think this is, well, you know what? I don't know who wrote this. So anyway, what this person is referring to here is that Marvel had a established strategy, particularly 70s, 80s, where the goal was to flood the shelves. And when this was the newsstand, you think about a comic rack, this made a little bit more sense. In the direct market, the flood the shelves strategy is a little bit odder. It just doesn't line up as nicely. But when you're talking about a comic rack in a grocery store or a gas station, the idea of like, hey, we're going to put out, 20 books a week. And, I don't know, 20 books. Let's say we're going to put out 20 books a week. Well, the rack may have space for 30 books, which basically means 2/3 of that rack is going to be owned by you, giving DC, Archie, all the independents kind of room to fight it out. And it was successful. It was the flood the market strategy. At different times, DC has attempted the same. And I think the New 52 somewhat, did that for them because they were able to kind of reboot, relaunch, and was a direct market. But, you had Hastings and other places selling it. And I remember that there's this, we got to all get in on the number one. So for this period of time, about 6 to 12 months, DC tipped it a little bit. But anyway, I think as a strategy, it's absurd now, particularly with the way the direct market operates and everything else. The flood the market strategy is, just go into a local comic shop. They have a wall of comics if they're selling new comics. And it doesn't really matter how much Marvel you put up there. It's just, anyway, it just doesn't work like it used to. All right, back to the mail. At the same time, there's another important audience involved here, hardcore X-Men fans. And I don't mean simply the people who have casually read the Claremont run or at some point even watched the 92 cartoon Once Upon a Time. I mean the kind of people with a more fundamental attachment to specific characters. Over the years, we've seen how the most fanatical X-Men fans tend to gravitate towards certain individuals from across the mutant universe. Some of these are well-known figures such as Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Gambit, Rogue, or Nightcrawler, which would be actually involved in the main X books. But there's a huge number of secondary and tertiary mutants that also have their respective fans. For instance, Emma Frost, Polaris, Havoc, Cannonball, Moonstar, Archangel, Forge, Dazzler, etc., and so on and so on. One of the weirdest ones, by the way, is Morrow and Maggot. Those are two characters that have, fan attachment to, but more of that creator attachment. It's always weird to me. It's like, my favorite X-Men is Morrow. Okay, well, you should not be writing X-Men. Nothing against that character, but no. Anyway, same thing kind of has happened with Jubilee as well. It's like, Jubilee is the most important X character. It's like, okay. Nothing against Jubilee, but stop. All right. Whenever there's a relaunch, you'll typically see Marvel's editors and writers attempt to mix various mutants from both groups to form different teams. A lot of column A, a little column B. If you make books that rely too much on only the most popular characters, you'll leave a lot of people complaining that nobody wants to play with the other toys anymore. In turn, those are also sorts of vocal fans who will loudly cheer whenever a new X-Men title is announced or revived, because it gives the lesser-known secondary cast a chance to get a little spotlight again. This means that while having a wide, massive X-line might not be creatively sustainable in the long run, it does at least provide an outlet for some of the fans to get what they want. On the contrary, if you were to keep only a limited cast of characters on a small number of books for a long time, the results may or may not be critically acclaimed, but should be directly or indirectly underserving the demand for more mutants to get another 15 minutes of fame. Having said all that, how do you propose that Marvel should deal with this dilemma? Okay. Let me start with cast. I thought we were going to go to the MCU, but it's about comics, which is way better. Okay, so first of all, how do I propose they solve that? Go for sales and ignore the sets of fans that want the B or the C characters for a while. I'm sorry. I know it sounds absurd and everything else, but here would be the secret to the X universe. And yes, the X universe has like 100 odd characters running around. And yes, there's somebody, there's fan favorites for every fan. But trying to meet the needs of all that, I think sets you up into a bad choice. Where are you trying to give this character 15 minutes of airtime, or are you trying to, sell a functional ongoing story? And increasingly, I think the ability to do both is impossible, or not in the current cards. Let's say. I think that if I was to kind of handle the X-Men, the thing you have to do is it's like building a house. You have to build a really, really solid foundation. It needs to be, strong and good and, reliable and everything else. And then you build on top of that. And I think the problem that Marvel has is because they are still trying to do a little bit of the flood the market strategy, they will get to, hey, let's launch, our goal is to launch 8 books in 3 months. And right there, you've ignored but do you have a stable foundation? When Hickman did, Hoxpox, that felt like a stable foundation to a lot of fans. It's like they canceled the other books and, okay, we're doing House of X Powers of 10, and this is going to be where we grow from. And then, it's like, okay, and then Hickman will continue writing X-Men, that title. And when that was announced, part of the announcement was each issue is going to be one and done. He's not going to do continual stories for a while, do something different. But it would serve as kind of the grounding wire, the linchpin of comics. But when that got announced, I remember thinking, this is not going to go well at that exact moment. I think there's even a video of me saying that from the way back. It wasn't, there wasn't a foundation being established. You had Hoxpox, you had those issues come out, 12 issues, great. And then you immediately went to, now we're going to launch 6 series and another 4 within 6 months, and we're eventually going to get to 12. And you never got okay, but what is the base? And the base was ostensibly supposed to be that X-Men title by Hickman, but Hickman was doing kind of one and done stories to explore the lore, and that's more of a companion book. If you're thinking about what he did with the Avengers, where you had an Avengers book, which was kind of the main thrust of what was going on, and you had New Avengers, which was going to set up the subplots and the other things, and eventually get to the big incursion story that he wanted to tell, that was the right way to do it. And so what Hickman should have done was have a grounding foundation title, largely populated by popular, big characters. You can always, you're right, you always sprinkle in a couple of lesser known characters, but that's a little bit like, in wrestling, when you have the main event, you have big stars there, and then you put a couple B characters in there as sidekicks or part of the entourage or whatever else, in the hopes that eventually you grow them and you build them to be bigger. It's what the WWE is doing right now with Jey Uso. He was there. They were getting some experience, tag team champion, wanted him to do singles work, started to kind of do a little bit of things there, and then now they have him spun off on his own, and they're trying to make some money off of him. With the X-Men, given the state of where it's at, and arguably you could say the same thing for the Justice League, which doesn't have a title right now, or the Avengers, or any number of books, you need to, in fact, the Avengers is sort of doing this in the current title, but you need to make sure the big characters are represented. So if I'm launching the X-Men right now, you got, what I would do is I would go to the team that was the core team back during the Dark Phoenix saga, and I would try and run a good year's worth of books with that team. Like, when was the last time we had Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops on a team fighting? You need to do that. That would be the smartest thing you could do. And yes, you will see fans on Twitter howling like, oh, so we're just going back to the main characters again. I guess there's no room for I know, pick your poison. Where's armor and all this? Where's, Skin? Why isn't Skin here? Shouldn't Husk be part of that team? I'm a fan of Husk. You'll get people complaining about that, but you've got to build up the core so you do have breathing room to have these other characters going on. And the reality is the X lineup has crumbled to such an extent that there's no core to build off of right now. You need to get the popularity, the strength, and the stability in the title with main big characters so that then they can have like, hey, we're going after the Savage Land and there's some Sauron's doing some shit over there again. And, we're going to need, I don't know, we're going to need a couple of like Maggot. We need you for this. And so, the character joins the team for 3 issues or, tags up. This was, this was kind of the strength of the Mansion and should have been the strength of Krakoa, where in the Mansion you have these mutants training and everything. So they're hanging around, a lot of these characters. Dazzler is just in and out doing stuff. And I mean, you have a lot of these characters that are there. And so if the mission demanded or something special came up, it's like this issue, young Cable and Dazzler and Maggot are here. Or, well, I keep picking on Maggot, but I mean, anyway, you get some of these, Domino is around because they've got a heist they got to do in Vegas. So we got Gambit and Domino have joined the team because they're good at this. You need to have a little bit of that. So have your core cast, have very solid stories built around them, have a scenario where you can tag in these other characters. Like I said, Krakoa as an island and a concept should have been this because they're all living on that fucking island. So they could have, very easily mixed and matched things, but instead they focused on the Krakoa as a party, and then they just created bizarre-ass titles to do who the hell knows what. It's like, hey, let's do a series called X-Corp, where it's, we're going to do a comic series about the corporate world of how they're doing the pharmaceutical business for the X-Men. Like, literally, when this title was pitched, I don't know if this was Teeny directly or Hickman or Jordan White or whoever, but when this title was pitched, somebody should just come up to smack the shit out of whoever said it. It's like, we're going to do an X title. We've got 10 titles right now in the market, and we're going to launch, we want to have another one, and it's going to be Archangel and M and Jamie Madrox, and they're going to be, have a couple other people in there. And we're going to have it based around the corporate intrigue of the pharmaceutical business that the X-Men were in. And somebody that's a moment where somebody needed to say, hey, no, what the fuck are you doing? No, that is, you are killing the franchise with stupid crap. Do not do that. Because that's really what happens when you expand like this and you balloon out like this, you start getting ridiculous concepts that dilute the entire thing. And so while, here, put it this way, there are fans out there of M, Monet. I'm sure they're out there. Okay. Are you such a fan of M that you're willing to buy a book where she's a corporate co-leader of a pharmaceutical business for the X-Men? Is that what you want? That cannot be what you want. So when doing this, nothing gets served. You get like 12 odd books out to the market. It doesn't work. So I would do simply get the core characters, the ones I mentioned. Again, I think it would be rad if you just had kind of that team, out there. And then you could add a couple others, Rogue and Gambit, probably throw them in, and Jean Grey. And then you just this is the powerhouse X-Men team. And don't try and fool around with hey, but what if we use the Laura Wolverine instead of the other one? No, just the core powerhouse, everybody recognizes them team. Do that. And the goal of this book is not to throw back to the 1970s. The goal of the book is to establish, a solid foundation. So then, 6 months later, you roll out New Mutants, and you just take, some of the other characters. You're able to then expand in a little bit more of an organic way. But you're expanding off of strength. Have some characters show up. Bishop and Cable show up for a 3-issue arc in this core X-Men book. And then at the end of that arc, they discover there's some time-traveling bullshit they got to deal with. And so they've got to go assemble the team. And so they spin out of the comic with either a mini-series or 12-issue series. And just do it that way. But keep your core team the core team that, has fan service and big blockbuster characters, and it will work out. Anyway, that's what I would do. I frankly, when you're not in a position of strength for that lineup right now, so it's kind of how you have to do. if you try and monkey around with it too much and get silly, like, hey, let's have a team where Jubilee's the leader, you're you're just look, you're continuing to play a game that has no good win scenario. Anyway, thanks for listening. No, wait. Before I say that, what team are you making? Who's your core X-Men team? What do you do? Do you use the we'll put Wolverine and Colossus and Storm and Cyclops on there, but we're also gonna bring in Joseph, the Joseph Magneto, and we're gonna, I don't know, we're gonna do a Beast clone, and we're gonna what are you doing? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for listening.